The Grand Hall of the Galactic Union was filled with laughter. It echoed through the chamber, bouncing off the massive walls of polished metal and glowing symbols of power. The room was filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy, rulers, admirals, and ambassadors of the greatest species. And today, they had gathered for an important discussion. The topic, humans, and the discussion, whether they were worth keeping alive. A weak and useless species, High Chancellor Exaltor, a towering reptilian with shimmering green scales, stood at the center of the room. He raised one clawed hand, silencing the murmuring crowd. His yellow eyes gleamed with amusement. "Let us speak honestly," he said, his deep voice filling the hall. "The humans are insignificant." Laughter rippled through the chamber. "They have no grand fleets, no mighty weapons, no advanced technology." Zaltor's mouth curled into a smirk. "And yet they dare to claim a place among the stars." A deep, rumbling chuckle came from Grand Admiral Voktan, leader of the Kreth Dominion. His 4 muscular arms crossed over his chest as he leaned forward. "I have seen human ships, weak metal shells, barely holding together." He scoffed. "They struggle to even defend their own colonies." The audience erupted in laughter again. Ambassador Yulves of the Valfar Alliance spoke next, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "They call themselves survivors, but what have they survived? They have never faced true war. They do not understand real power." She shook her head. "If they disappeared tomorrow, would anyone even notice?" The aliens in the hall howled with amusement. To them, humanity was a joke. A primitive species that had somehow stumbled into space. A species that did not belong. A harsh decision. Chancellor Exaltor raised his hand again, signaling for silence. The hall grew quiet, though amusement still lingered in the air. "Some among us have suggested allowing the humans to exist. Let them remain on their little colonies. Let them struggle with their tiny ships." He smiled cruelly. "But I ask you, why? What do they contribute to the galaxy?" No one answered. Zaltor's smile widened. "They are weak. They are insignificant." He leaned forward, his yellow eyes glowing. "And weak species do not last." The crowd murmured in agreement. Admiral Voktan nodded. "Perhaps it is time we remove them from the stars." The hall erupted in approval. They had wiped out species before. What was one more? The first attack. The decision was made. The Galactic Union's finest warships were sent to a human colony, Nova Prime, a small but growing settlement on the edge of space. The plan was simple: destroy the colony. Leave nothing behind. It would serve as a warning to other species who thought they could challenge the Union's rule. The fleet arrived at Nova Prime within hours. Massive Union warships hovered over the planet like silent gods. Their weapons charged, their cannons aimed. On the surface, humans looked up in terror as the skies darkened. Then, the first strike came. Explosions ripped through the city. Buildings crumbled, fire consumed the streets, and the screams of the innocent echoed through the night. The Union fleet did not stop. They rained destruction upon the helpless colony, laughing at the humans' feeble attempts to fight back. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. Within hours, Nova Prime was gone. Nothing remained but ashes and silence. The last transmission. Before the colony fell, a single distress signal was sent into the void, a desperate cry for help. But no one expected an answer. After all, who would come for the humans? Who would save them? The Union commanders received reports of the distress signal, but dismissed it immediately. "Let them beg," Admiral Voktan said with a grin. "No one will listen." The other officers laughed. To them, this was just another example of human desperation. A final, useless scream into the darkness. But what they did not know was that someone had heard it. Someone was coming. And soon, the galaxy would no longer be laughing. The destruction of Nova Prime was supposed to be a message, a warning to humanity, a demonstration of power. But instead, it became the greatest mistake the Union had ever made. Because the humans had survived worse. And now, they were coming. Whispers of the unknown. Weeks passed after the attack. The Galactic Union's warlords celebrated their easy victory. Admiral Voktan personally declared, "The human problem is solved." To the rest of the galaxy, Nova Prime was already forgotten. But then, the disappearances began. The first signs. It started small. A Union patrol ship vanished on the outer edge of known space. No distress signal, no debris. Just gone. Then, a supply convoy went silent near an abandoned sector. At first, no one paid attention. Pirates existed. Accidents happened. But then, a warship, a fully armed battlecruiser, disappeared without a trace. The Union's top commanders began to worry. Ships did not just vanish. Something was hunting them. The fear spreads. Reports began flooding in. Survivors, few and terrified, spoke of a shadow moving through space, a ship unlike anything the Union had ever seen. Black as the void. Silent. Deadly. It did not communicate. It did not negotiate. It only struck. One survivor, barely clinging to life, described it in a weak voice. It was waiting for us. We never saw it coming. It moved faster than anything. We never stood a chance. His final words before collapsing into silence. It was human. The Council's panic. The High Chancellor called an emergency meeting. The humans do not have this kind of power. Zoltor snarled. Their technology is primitive. But the evidence was clear. Something was out there. Something human. And it was hunting them down. Admiral Voktan, once so confident, now felt a strange chill in his bones. "Send more ships," he ordered. "Hunt it down. Destroy it before it spreads more fear." But fear had already spread, because the galaxy was no longer laughing. And somewhere, hidden in the endless darkness of space, a single human warship watched, waiting, ready to strike again. The Galactic Union had ruled for thousands of years. They had fought wars, crushed rebellions, and wiped out entire species. But now, for the first time, they were afraid, not of an empire, not of an invasion, but of one single warship, a ship that should not exist, a ship that came from nowhere, a ship that was hunting them. And it was human. The hunt begins. Admiral Voktan stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 4 muscular arms crossed tightly. He had ordered 10 of the Union's strongest warships to patrol the outer sectors. Their mission was simple: find the human warship, destroy it. But one by one, his ships kept disappearing. The ghost in the dark. Commander Silver, captain of the Union cruiser Valkyr's Wrath, felt the tension on his ship. His crew whispered in fear. They had heard the stories. A shadow moving through space, a ship that left no survivors. But Silver was a veteran. He did not believe in ghosts, until the alarm screamed. Unknown contact detected. A crew member shouted. Silver's blood turned cold as he saw the readings. A ship had appeared directly behind them. No warning, no hyperspace signature, nothing. It was just there. And then, the attack began. The Wrath falls. Shields up. Fire all weapons. Silvar roared. The Valkyr's Wrath unleashed its full power. Energy cannons, missile barrages, plasma torpedoes. A firestorm erupted in space. But the human warship did not move. It simply watched. Then, without warning, it struck. One blast. Just one. A single beam of pure white energy cut through the Wrath's shields like paper. The ship shook violently as explosions erupted across its hull. Hull breach. We're losing control. A crew member screamed. Silver stared at the view screen, eyes wide with horror. No warship, Not even the strongest Union dreadnoughts had this kind of firepower. This was not human technology. This was something else. And then, in an instant, the Wrath was gone. No wreckage, no debris, just erased. Panic in the Union. The loss of the Valkyr's Wrath sent shockwaves through the Union. Admiral Voktan slammed his fist against the table, his anger masking his fear. "How is this possible?" he bellowed. High Chancellor Exaltor narrowed his reptilian eyes. "This is no ordinary human ship," he said darkly. "We have underestimated them." For the first time in history, the Union felt weak. Their fleets were powerless. Their technology was inferior. And their enemy? An unstoppable ghost in the dark. They had laughed at humans. They had mocked them. But now, they were starting to realize the truth. The war had already begun, and the humans were winning. The Galactic Union had never known fear like this before. They had fought countless wars. They had crushed empires. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries. But now, they were being hunted by a single warship, a warship that should not exist, a warship that should not be this powerful, a warship that was tearing them apart. And worst of all, it was human. The meeting of the warlords. A secret meeting was held on the Union homeworld. The most powerful leaders of the galaxy gathered in a hidden chamber beneath the capital city. Admiral Voktan, his face twisted in rage. High Chancellor Exaltor, his reptilian eyes burning with fear. Ambassador Yulves, silent for the first time in her life. They were not here to debate. They were here to survive. Voktan slammed his fists on the table. "This is madness. We are the most powerful force in the galaxy. We have thousands of warships. How can one ship be doing this to us?" No one had an answer. Because the truth was simple. They had no idea what they were dealing with. The Dark Theory. An old Union strategist, Grand Scholar Relfak, stood slowly. His voice was calm, but his eyes held terror. "This is no ordinary human ship," he said. Exaltor scoffed. Obviously. Relfak ignored him. "I have studied human history," he continued. "Before they were wiped out, before we erased their worlds, they had a secret project." Voktan's anger faded. "What project?" Relfak's voice dropped to a whisper. "The Revenant Protocol." A heavy silence filled the room. The Revenant Protocol. Centuries ago, before the Union had hunted humans to the edge of extinction, humanity had one last desperate plan. They knew they could not win against the Union's endless fleets. So they created something different. Not an army, not an empire, but one single warship. A ship that could not be tracked. A ship with technology beyond anything in the known galaxy. A ship that could strike from the shadows and disappear. It was humanity's final weapon. Its last revenge. And now, it was awake. The Union's new plan. Exaltor's claws tapped against the metal table. If this warship is part of an old human project, then it must have limits. It must have weaknesses. Voktan growled. "Then we must find them, before it is too late." The Union's greatest minds gathered. A trap was planned. A fleet of 100 warships was assembled. Every admiral, every commander, every soldier was given one mission. Find the human warship. Destroy it. It was the largest hunt in Union history, and this time they would make sure there was no escape. The calm before the storm. Deep in the void of space, the human warship floated silently. Inside, its captain watched the stars. The Union thought this was just a warship, a forgotten project from an old war. But they were wrong. This was more than just a ship. This was vengeance. And soon, the hunt would end. Not with the destruction of the warship, but with the fall of the Galactic Union. The Galactic Union was done playing games. The human warship had haunted them for too long. It had destroyed their warships. It had shaken their confidence. It had turned fear into reality. Now, they would end it, once and for all. the largest fleet in history, Admiral Voktan stood on the bridge of the Dominator, the Union's most powerful dreadnought. Before him, the largest fleet ever assembled floated in the cold void of space, 100 warships. Every class of ship, from nimble interceptors to planet-killing dreadnoughts. It was overwhelming force, a storm of power that no enemy could survive. And at its center, they had placed the perfect bait, a fake Union supply convoy, transmitting false data, making it appear weak and unguarded. If the human warship truly was a predator, it would strike. And when it did, the trap would spring, and it would finally be destroyed. The waiting game. Hours passed. The fleet floated silently, weapons primed, engines humming. The trap was set. Voktan watched the sensor screens with narrowed eyes. He expected the warship to arrive like a ghost, as it had done before. But nothing happened. The silence stretched. Too long. A nervous officer turned to the admiral. "Sir, what if it knows?" Voktan's eyes flashed with anger. "Impossible. The humans do not have advanced intelligence networks. The only way it would know is if." He stopped. A cold realization filled his mind. The trap had not failed. It had been turned against them. The first attack. An explosion ripped through the side of the fleet. A Union cruiser vanished in a ball of fire. Voktan spun toward the view screen. The human warship was already inside the formation. Not approaching. Not hesitating. Attacking. The monster unleashed. Fire. All ships, fire. The Union fleet erupted with energy blasts, missiles, and torpedoes. A storm of death rained toward the human warship. But it did not run. It did not dodge. Instead, it charged forward, faster than anything in known space, weaving through fire like a shadow in a storm. And when it fired, a single blast from its main cannon erased an entire dreadnought. Voktan's heart froze. This wasn't just a warship. This was a force of nature. The trap becomes a massacre. One by one, Union ships fell. Their shields useless. Their weapons too slow. The human warship moved like a ghost, appearing and disappearing, striking without mercy. It was not fighting a battle. It was hunting. And the Union fleet was its prey. The admiral's desperation. Voktan clenched his fists. This was impossible. How could one ship do this? All remaining ships, retreat, he roared. But it was too late. The human warship was already behind them. Its weapons glowed bright. And then, the flagship was hit. A direct blast. Voktan's world turned to fire. The last thing he heard was the screams of his crew. And then, silence. The aftermath. The greatest fleet in Union history had been erased. Destroyed by one ship, the Galactic Union had mocked humans. They had laughed at their weakness. But now, no one was laughing. Because the war had truly begun. And the humans were just getting started. The destruction of the Union's grand fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. A force of 100 warships had been wiped out. By a single human vessel. No survivors. No debris. Just silence. And that silence was filled with fear. Panic in the Union. The Galactic Council was in chaos. High Chancellor Xaltor sat frozen, his scales pale with fear. "We have lost everything." His voice trembled. "Our fleets are gone. Our warlords are dead. The humans." He stopped, unable to say the words. Because for the first time in history, they were no longer in control. The human message. And then, the impossible happened. A transmission echoed through Union space. A voice, calm and cold. "Human, your fleets have fallen. Your leaders tremble. You called us weak. You called us dead ****. But now we are here ****. You erased our worlds. You hunted our people. And now, we return the favor." The message ended, and the Union knew the truth. This was not just a warship. This was humanity's vengeance, and it would not stop. The final defense. With no fleets left, the Union had only one hope: their homeworld. It was a fortress, a planet covered in defensive turrets, planetary shields, and anti-ship cannons. Nothing had ever breached its defenses. The last remnants of the Union's armies gathered. The last warships took position. They had lost space. They had lost fleets. But they would not lose their home. Or so they thought. The sky burns. The human warship arrived without warning. No hyperspace trail. No signal. Just darkness. The Union's final fleet opened fire. Missiles. Lasers. Planetary cannons. A storm of destruction. But the human ship did not fall. It moved like a shadow. It weaved through fire. And then, it attacked. One shot. A single beam of light erupted from its core. The Union's planetary shields shattered. Their defenses crumbled. And for the first time in history, the Union's homeworld was exposed. The end of the Union. The human ship did not destroy the planet. It did not wipe them out. It simply broadcasted one final message. Asterisk, asterisk, you laughed at us. You thought we were weak. But now you understand. This galaxy is no longer yours. Humanity has returned. Asterisk, asterisk. And then, it vanished. Gone, leaving the Union in fear. They had ruled for centuries. But now, their time was over. The Galactic Union was broken. Their fleets were gone. Their homeworld was defenseless. And their people, terrified. No one spoke of war anymore. No one dared to resist. Because somewhere in the darkness of space, the human warship was still watching. Fear spreads across the stars. Across the galaxy, news of the warship's victory spread like wildfire. The once mighty Union had been humiliated. Empires that once feared the Union began to rise. Slave races, long crushed under the Union's rule, saw their chance. Planets revolted. Governments collapsed. The Union began to fracture. And through it all, one question remained. Where was the human warship? It had appeared from nowhere. It had destroyed everything in its path. And then, it had vanished. The Council's last plea. High Chancellor Gazaltor and the last Union leaders sat in their ruined war chambers. Their forces were gone. Their empire was crumbling. And there was only one thing left to do. We must beg for peace, Gazaltor said, his voice hollow. The mighty rulers of the galaxy, reduced to begging. They sent a transmission, a desperate plea, to the humans, to whoever commanded the warship. The final message. For days, there was no response. And then, a single transmission came through. The same voice. Cold. Calm. Human. Asterisk, asterisk, you do not deserve peace. You did not offer mercy. You will not receive it, asterisk, asterisk. And then, nothing. The warship never returned. It never attacked again. But the damage was done. The age of humanity. The Galactic Union collapsed. Planets declared independence. The old rulers were overthrown. The balance of power was shattered. And in the void of space, legends whispered of a ghost. A warship that defied logic. A warship that could never be stopped. A warship that changed the galaxy forever. The Union had mocked humanity. They had laughed at them. But now, they would never laugh again. Because the galaxy belonged to humans now, and nothing would ever be the same. The end.